The
you
one
let
from
me
the base
start.
server. Let's it up,
All right, you
please,
let me start.
please. Oh yeah. So for the recording topic is Kaido versus Whitebeard. I think Kaido wins or outscales. Lucas obviously thinks that Whitebeard is stronger, outscales.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
You can
Yeah.
go first.
No, you can go first.
I keep going first every single debate. I like to switch things up a bit.
You can go.
All right. Well, my argument would just be the fact that Whitebeard's stated to be the strongest card. If you grant that,
Yeah, sure. What do you think strongest entails here?
I think strongest entails being combatively superior and outscaling.
Why so?
Modern, so the contextualization that's given in the series itself, that scans will contextualize this title as being combative.
Send the scans.
Sure, buddy.
That's a Holocaust level
You
conspiracy.
guys have a 40-minute time. The timer is starting now. 30 to 40 minutes now.
Okay.
Chill with
Wait, what?
chill with the soundboards for it, Trina.
Wait, that shit caught me off guard. Bro said you get heat from heat. What the fuck? That shit just caught me off guard. What the fuck, bro?
Good thing I can't hear some words.
Who freaking hell, man, right now, bro?
All right, check in the scans chat, Joe.
I'm seeing the statement. Okay, aim for the top in the name of the world's strongest. That of Bagella. So I'm assuming the second scan is the one you prioritize for the scaling, right? Of the contextualization.
Both really, but I mean, you can go one at a time. That's fine.
What do you mean both? Because the first scan has multiple different translations with different characters.
What do you mean?
Yeah, so yeah, the first scan, I see the kanji you sent for some statement which says aim for the top in the name of the world's strongest. So obviously you do mean that obviously you do think that strongest means that he's the best in terms of combative capabilities. I know that. But I'm saying the second scan seems to be the more important one here. Since it's buggy, I guess, given this contextualization, I guess.
Listen, if you want to just go with the buggy one first, talk about the buggy one first. Let's go on that one then.
All right, okay, okay. So what do you think Buggy says here, which means it's going to be combative within the title?
Because he just says that without a doubt that he's the strongest pirate because he was able to fight the Pirate King at the standstill. So based on his combative feat against Roger, he's the strongest. So he's
Okay,
earning it through.
okay, is Buggy's experiences from not come like is Bug like okay when it comes to Buggy, it seems that his experiences for coming to such conclusions based upon Prime Whitebeard, right? Because he was saying like legendary monster who alone fought against the Pirate King, and obviously Whitebeard and his Prime fought against Roger, right? Those things happen. So it can be something in which applies towards Prime Whitebeard, and then Prime Whitebeard has like a decline, which I don't know if Buggy knows about. So from Prime Whitebeard to old Whitebeard, I don't see why the meaning of the title still translates down to his old state if he gets weaker. And Buggy probably does notice. You can't prove
Wait,
that he didn't notice. So why do
okay,
you
so
think that?
just to be clear, you're not saying that old Whitebeard is no longer the strongest. You're just saying that this scan could imply that the contextualization of the title has changed since his aging, right?
No, what I'm saying is that I agree with the fact that old Whitebeard does uphold said title, but I'm saying the meaning of the title in which
Okay.
Buggy derives, the meaning of the title in which Buggy derives from a Prime Whitebeard, and then from that point forward, Whitebeard is getting progressively weaker. So I don't know if he would still uphold the same status of being the strongest despite him getting weaker. And on top of that, this seems to be a knowledge claim for Buggy. So we don't know. Well, I don't know if Buggy knows the fact that Whitebeard's getting weaker. So it seems that if he doesn't know, if I assume that, then he's presupposing the same Whitebeard has the same level of strength and condition as Prime Whitebeard. So I don't know if that still follows towards a Whitebeard who's getting weaker. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. So that's what I said.
Yeah.
But anyway, so for my response, right? First off, he is contextualizing this to old Whitebeard because the context of the scene is him warning his crew why they should not mess with old Whitebeard, right? So if the
Uh-huh.
title wouldn't Okay, first off, right, he literally says as of now, so he's still saying that he upholds his title, and that
Uh-huh.
makes more sense with the context of the scene because the context of the scene is telling them why they shouldn't go and fight Whitebeard because if they
Right.
harm Ace or whatever the fuck, they have to
Right.
entail us. So the clear context of the scan is that he's pointing it towards what's his name? Old Whitebeard still upholding the title. Now, as for what you said later on, right, about this being a knowledge claim, that's fine if he's still like if he doesn't quite know, right? Like if Old Whitebeard declined or not, even though I don't believe that, but that point doesn't really matter because the point is the preponderance in the narrative is that Old Whitebeard's title is portrayed as combative, which is the
Right.
point. So whether or not, right,
Right.
it's a knowledge claim from Buggy's rather irrelevant to the one sec.
Yeah. Okay.
To the overall narrative, oh my goodness, I just broke a chain. But it's just irrelevant to the overall narrative that's being depicted by Oda, where it gives more preponderance of evidence for this. So that's
Mhm.
my response.
Right. Okay, so I think the knowledge claim does matter because it seems that, well, I think it's pretty obvious that Buggy is coming to such conclusion based off his experiences, right? He's saying that, Roger and White were boxing, going relative, without a doubt, he's the strongest. So we know for a fact that there's a correlation between him fighting Roger towards him undoubtedly being the strongest. So if that is the case, which is based off his experiences, and he's making a knowledge claim, that's why it does matter. Because if he's saying this, without a doubt, he's still the strongest. Well, you don't realize that he's still using the same feat from a prime Whitebeard, and at the same time, though, I'll repeat this for the last time. Old Whitebeard does get he does get weaker given the sickness, et cetera, et cetera. And the knowledge claim would matter because hypothetically speaking, if Buggy doesn't know that Whitebeard does like if he does not know that Whitebeard gets weaker, he would still presuppose that old Whitebeard is still the same in terms of condition and strength to his prime self. But if he's not oblivious and he knows this, which is just incorrect by the way. But if he somehow does notice and still come into a conclusion, then you have to prove that. But from this point forward, you will have to prove that Buggy still knows the fact that Wyber gets weaker and still come to this conclusion because I don't think there's any evidence pointing towards to the POV of like Buggy knowing this and still saying this. You have to prove that. That's very crucial within the scaling. But we can move on if
Yeah,
you want to.
the problem with what you just said, right, is that it doesn't, for whatever reason, Buggy thinks
Mm-hmm.
the end conclusion is the fact that he still thinks applies to Old Whitebeard, right? And it doesn't
Yep.
have to necessarily be because he thinks that Old Whitebeard just didn't lose any strength at all. That would be unlikely, as conventionally people in One Piece do understand that old people do get weaker. It's said a lot of times by characters, so it would be more likely that he does think that Whitebeard has declined. It can simply be that he does not believe the extent to which Whitebeard has declined is
Prove
relevant
that.
enough so that that feat.
Prove that. That's a possibility here. Now, if you're saying that, well, in One Piece, there's people who say that, or people who acknowledge the fact that old people do get weaker. That's fine. Some people can have that sense of knowing that, well, when people do get old, they get weaker. But I don't see why this sort of thing would apply towards specifically towards Buggy, unless you provide some sort of crazy consistency within multiple characters showing this. And even if I do grant this, that's even if I do grant the fact that Buggy would know that he gets weaker, we don't know to what degree. So let's say, for example, he thinks it's something that's very trivial or something that's insignificant. I mean, so if he thinks it's insignificant, which is like 0.11, then obviously there's no significant distinction. But if he does not know the fact that there's going to be a noticeable distinction, then he would not know that, well, if I'm correlating Whitebeard and Prime Whitebeard to each other, even though, right, Prime Whitebeard is noticeably above, I don't see how once again he can come to a realistic conclusion upon who's stronger. That also the extent also matters as well. So you have to prove that Buggy will have this mindset of knowing that old people get weaker, and then you have to prove that Buggy has his mindset of saying that the weakness is something in which is not significant. And on top of it, you have to prove the fact that Buggy even knows the fact that he has a sickness and he's getting old. Those two things, not just oldness, it's also him being sick. He has a disease. You have to prove all that.
Why do I have to prove all that?
Yeah, because yeah. So firstly, you said that in One Piece, people know people get weaker. I actually proved that for why that correlates towards Buggy, or provide a lot of evidence or provide a lot of evidence in which would persuade us to believing that this is something that more than likely Buggy does know. And on top of that, he has a disease which obviously hurts his health. He's on medication, et cetera, et cetera. So this is something which hurts his critical condition, his conditions. So there's two things that is known for him currently, which is the old age and the sickness. No, the old age and the disease. So there's multiple things I know for him. If Buggy only knows about the old age part, in which I don't believe in, but he does not know the fact that he has a disease, then that would not be an accurate representation of which Buggy is using from that Whitebeard. That's why.
So is your point saying that Buggy's not reliable in calling Old Whitebeard the strongest? Is that the end conclusion here?
You're not understanding. I'm saying that when it comes to Buggy saying he is the strongest, I can agree. That's something that's factual. But I'm saying the meaning, right? The denotation of said title is something which is kind of contention. So I'm saying there's so many different things or so many different points we have, and which will make us question whether or not if this sort of comparison he's doing between Prime Whitebeard and old Whitebeard, that dichotomy, I'm saying there's going to be a huge contention with that, and whether or not that's actually something that's true and corresponds to the verse or reality. That's what I'm saying.
Wait, okay. Yeah, let me fucking simplify this. Holy shit.
Okay.
First off, okay, so you're saying, right, that because first off, do you agree based on what I said earlier that Buggy's calling Old Whitebeard the strongest in a combative sense, that he's calling this?
Yeah.
Okay. So the to summarize what you just said earlier on, you're saying that you just don't think that he's reliable in giving Whitebeard this title in this context because of, him not knowing about aging and shit like that.
No, I'm not saying he's not reliable as in applying the title to the person. I'm saying he's not reliable in the sense of saying that the title is something which is combative capabilities. I'm saying that's something that's not reliable here.
How is
Given
that
so
not?
many different, yeah, I'll say it for the last time. Given so many unknown variables in which would affect Wyber negatively, we can't prove or do we know the fact that Buggy does know these things. That's what I'm saying. So if Buggy is completely oblivious to this thing, in which you have not proven he isn't, so if he is completely oblivious to these nerfs, then the representation which he's using for old Wyber and prime Wyber would not be something that's true. So he'll be going under a sense of a false Wyber. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, again, like I'm okay with the argument that Buggy could be ignorant as to whether or not like Old Whitebeard is still currently the strongest. The problem is that
So,
with what the story, wait, let me finish. With what the story is giving us, there's a preponderance that the context of Whitebeard is not anything else but combatively, right? We have more narrative portrayal from Oda. Whether or not Buggy is like completely false in saying that like Whitebeard can beat everyone else right now is completely irrelevant because, right, him giving the contextualization, whether he's right or not, doesn't it still gives credence to the argument that the bigger narrative portrayal is to be in a combative sense. That's objective.
That's a red herring. For saying that there's external people or external applications to which confirm the fact that Water being the strongest, and you're using that as some sort of preponderance of evidence to justify Buggy's belief, that's like completely irrelevant. Because your whole point of bringing up the skin was to showcase the fact that in which Buggy contextualized Waber's title to be something that's combative. I don't give a fuck about anybody else's opinion. If anything, you have to prove as to why there's something that would influence Buggy's opinion or influence why they opinion specifically would be something that actually opposed to reality in the verse.
Did you slow that down?
Yeah, I got you. So basically, what I'm saying is that that's kind of a red herring because of the fact that the current conversation we're having is about Buggy's contextualization of Whitebeard. So if you're saying that there's external things in which can confirm the fact that Whitebeard is the strongest in terms of combative ability, that's completely irrelevant unless you want to prove that, well, within all these consistencies within the verse, this is something which demonstrates Whitebeard being the strongest, generally speaking, also in terms of Buggy's POV. So if you can't prove that, then that's completely irrelevant
Wait,
because
that's not relevant because my
but
argument
that's what I
my
just said.
argument can
I
you
agree.
let me finish? Holy shit. Okay,
I agree.
listen.
It's relevant.
Oh, so you agree to my point, so you can see it.
No, I'm saying no. That's not what happened. I'm saying that my whole point was me saying that it's quote unquote irrelevant or it's something that's not needed, it's trivial, and then you responded by saying, "Yeah, it's irrelevant." Like we agree. What the fuck? We don't
No,
disagree there.
no, no. What's irrelevant is your counter. What's irrelevant is your counter, bro. Don't pull this shit.
All
Anyways,
right,
let me.
we can move on if you want to.
No,
That's
no,
fine.
no. We're not moving on. I want to respond.
Wait,
Listen,
you
the
guys
whole.
not conclude?
No, he wants
I'm
to.
trying to respond. I'm trying to respond to him. The
Yeah.
point is, right, that it's not irrelevant because again, Buggy's whole acknowledgement here does not respond to the fact that my argument has nothing to do with external sources either claiming the title to be true, the contextualization or whatnot, right? All my
Mhm.
argument predicates upon is this scan giving more of a preponderance to the contextualization that will be used in the narrative. So there's more reason to believe that the narrative is going to depict him in this way, even if it's possible that Buggy's talking out of his ass here, right? The problem is that we have a higher, greater narrative preponderance for this contextualization than any other, unless you can obviously give a contextualization that he's the strongest in terms of, I don't know, fucking lifting strength.
Yeah, in the skin, they're saying that which quote unquote gives it high preponderance is the same skin that's currently contention, right? Right.
You guys are like not really going anywhere. You guys gonna go to
Yeah, we
conclusion.
can. Yeah, we can conclude if
You
you
can,
want to.
you can
That's
conclude on
fine.
this one. That's fine.
Okay. So just to be clear, there was 2 points that you guys went over.
Uh,
One, what is the strongest contextually or denotatively mean in context of One Piece? Is it combatively or something else? Then you guys went into whether or not Buggy is whatever his knowledge is reliable for this set statement. Do you guys want to get conclusions or no?
You can if you want to. Go ahead, Lucas.
Okay. Well, the main point of the scan was to just show that within One Piece, the contextualization, there's a higher preponderance for the contextualization behind Whitebeard's title to be combative, right? Which is the point of the scan. Joe did try to contest it by saying that Buggy, even though we did agree that he's talking about old Whitebeard bearing this title, he did contest it by saying that like he doesn't know if Buggy may not know if like old Whitebeard's like declined or to what extent he's declined, which is fine because that doesn't really take away from the contextualization that the narrative gives on the scan, whether or not he's reliable or not. It does give more preponderance to this being how the story is trying to portray Whitebeard's title, whether or not he's true or not, or true or false, right? For example, if I say an apple's healthy, and then I eat a fucking rotted apple, and I claim this is still healthy, doesn't take away from the overall narrative that apples are healthy. My main point is that the story is still portraying this title as such. Buggy being wrong on whether or not he actually is the strongest as of now because of Prior's like age doesn't really matter.
Yeah, okay. I can respond. So the whole point I was saying is that when it comes to this title, I mean this statement right here, is based upon because so Buggy's the whole person who's been saying this. It's a knowledge claim, which means based off his experience and his knowledge, he's making this claim based off what he knows, right? And I was saying, okay, that's fine because he's doing a comparison between Whitebeard and Prime Whitebeard. He's using the feat of Prime Whitebeard who fought against Roger as some sort of justification for why he's currently the strongest. But I'm saying there's many problems with this because I was asking him to prove the fact that does Buggy know about his illness and does he know about his old age? Because if he's oblivious of these specific things, then he would presuppose that Prime Whitebeard and old Whitebeard are similar or exactly the same in strength. So I'm saying if he does not know the fact that Whitebeard has these nerves that's making him weaker by condition and by physicality, then he would go under something which isn't an accurate representation of that Whitebeard and as a comparison towards Prime Whitebeard. And he was saying a lot of things with the consistency or preponderance of evidence for like and people in verses who think or know the fact that old people get weaker. I said, okay, prove that, show a consistency. And I said, even if you did show evidence of people upholding this belief, that would not be relevant towards Buggy's claim or Buggy's knowledge because Buggy could hold a different opinion or he does not have to hold that opinion whatsoever. So I asked him to prove that. What else? He was saying something else. Fuck, what was he saying? What else was he saying? I don't know. Okay, forgot to go up, but I think that's the
Yeah.
main things or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for verdict on the first point on whether or not this title is combative, Till agreed that the title is combative in reference to that of like a Prime Whitebeard, but that point isn't really relevant at all. The main relevant point is like the knowledge point, to which before you even start yapping, I'll give reasons, right? I believe Cho won the point pretty easily. One, he pretty much is self concede that what is it? What is his name? Buggy is like fallible. If Buggy is fallible, then what is it? That just cosigns Cho's interpretation that this statement, due to like these unknown variables and conditions, Buggy when he makes his statement is probably just thinking that old Whitebeard and Prime Whitebeard are still relative to one another, still have like the same threshold of strength, which that goes true. Then the statement is just contextualized to a Prime Whitebeard. You brought up how like the narrative preponderance raises this likelihood or whatever. Then you brought up like some other shit to which Cho was like, that's like, a red herring as the narrative of the preponderance doesn't correlate to what you guys are talking about. You didn't say, well, the narrative behind the scan, and you just kept saying preponderance, but scans are never sent that justify this quote unquote preponderance. And if we do say that there is a preponderance, that would again coincide alongside Cho's interpretation that the narrative behind Whitebeard being the strongest is true under the context is in reference to Prime Whitebeard. So even if that were to go through, it still wouldn't defeat Cho's point, as the narrative still goes. It still fits with like Odo one. And then secondly, what is it? Um, you just never like really went against Cho's point at all. So I think Cho wins that.
Alright, that's fine. We can move on to the other scan. Yeah, and that
Wait,
book
hold on,
yellow.
wait, hold on, hold on. So this just means that if Cho wins this point, the second scan for Buggy is in reference to what is it? Prime Whitebeard. And due to like, the narrative of Whitebeard, as you yourself said from the debate, the whole entire narrative of what is it, Whitebeard, under the context of this debate, him being the strongest will be in reference to a Prime Whitebeard. So
Mhm.
unless you can prove that the manga data book statement is in reference to an old Whitebeard, which you can't because like you kind of fucked yourself over. All statements of like the strongest will just be correlative to Prime Whitebeard. So you
What?
just
That's not what I. No. What the fuck?
I
How-
know.
You can contest judgment after the debate's over.
What the
No,
fuck?
no.
I'll give
Just
like a quick
continue.
reading.
We have a time limit. We have a time limit. Just
Yeah,
continue.
I,
You
I,
Okay.
got
I,
20 minutes left. You
no,
guys
the
got 20
debate's
minutes
over.
left.
Let's just finish this debate. Y'all can
Okay.
talk about y'all
So
continue.
you,
Wait, so Cho, move on to your spelling.
Wait, what?
Let's go.
Yeah, it's still
All
got
right,
scaling. It's still got scaling. What the hell?
all right, go ahead, go ahead.
You don't have scaling.
What do you mean?
I just okay, Lucas. What do you think your scaling is?
just let him do his scaling. So if he
Okay,
thinks he has scaling, let him do his
go
scaling.
ahead. Just go ahead. Just go ahead.
Okay, bro.
Go ahead, Lucas.
Okay.
Present your scaling.
Yeah, the second scale.
The buggy one again?
No, the first one. Well, they
Okay.
haven't.
Okay. What is it? What does the first one prove? Like, give me the rundown on the argument.
The first one proves that it just calls Whitebeard strongest, right? And it's contextualizing it to combative ability because the context is about Ace going to hunt down Whitebeard, right? And Ace wanted to hunt him down in a fight. So it's all about
An
combative.
ace. An ace. Hold on. Let me see. Because from what I'm seeing, all it says is aim for the top in the name of the world's strongest. I don't see anything about the ace wanting to hunt down because of X, Y, B, and Z. I don't know what you're talking about.
Wait, what exactly you're talking about? You want proof that Ace is trying to beat him in a fight?
No. I'm saying like all I see from the scan is a whole bunch of Japanese kanji, and the text you sent with the scans, which is aim for the top in the name of the world's strongest. I don't see what that proves here.
Because it's calling Whitebeard the strongest in
Mm-hmm.
relation to Ace trying to get that title, which we know in context via the story, Ace is trying to
Yeah.
get that title by
Yeah.
killing Whitebeard in a fight. So
Yeah.
if Ace is trying to get if Ace is trying to get Whitebeard's title through combative scenario, the context to achieving such title is through combative ability, right? And the data book is confirming that this is what is going on, right? That the data book is contextualizing the strongest here to being in relation to Ace's goal to beat him in a fight. So it's in relation to combative ability.
Mm-hmm. Hold up. Wait a minute. Okay, my fault. I'll respond to this. I don't know what you mean by the whole thing about the data book quote unquote confirms something. I don't think data book confirms anything. I think that we confirm it from the syntax used or the context surrounding the syntax. And also within this, that's fine. I can agree to everything, but I don't see why that's something that corresponds to reality, given that if it's saying that he's the strongest, as in Ace, like since Ace wants to be the strongest, he aims for Whitebeard, who is positioned as that specific thing. I don't see why that actually makes like Whitebeard the strongest in actuality. This can just be some sort of opinion which Ace upholds and which he believes by virtue of beating Wyber that makes him the strongest. But why does that actually make him the strongest independent of Ace's opinion? Like why? Like why do you think that?
Okay, first off, right? I don't know what exactly you mean by what the scan is trying to say because the scan I just translated quite literally just says aim for the top in the name of the world's strongest. There's no extra context appearing in that meeting. Second off, right? We already agreed, right, that
Are you
Whitebeard
contradicting
is
yourself?
one sec, one
Are
sec.
you
We
are
already
you
one sec,
disagreeing with what you
one
said?
sec, one sec. Ace is trying to so the whole point of the scan, right, is that it's saying that I don't know what the fuck this guy's on. The point is that the scan itself is saying that Whitebeard's the strongest, as we've agreed, and it's saying that
Mm-hmm.
Ace is trying to, get that title through Whitebeard. He's saying that
Yep.
aim for the top of the head in the name of the world's strongest. So if
Mm-hmm.
Ace beats Whitebeard, right, that is the context behind him becoming the world's strongest. It's not just
Yes.
Ace's belief, it's the data book's belief.
Yeah, okay, you're still on this thing. Also, I don't know if you're just going to contradict yourself. You said that firstly off the text alone, then you said there was no supporting context, but then you just brought up more context upon Ace wanting to beat Robert to become the head. So I don't know what you say on that.
No, but
Yeah,
the problem is
but what you said that kind of just goes circular here. I'm not disagreeing the fact that Ace has a belief in which by virtue of him beating the guy who's positioned right as the world's strongest, that means he is the strongest. That's fine. But I'm saying there's going to be some sort of belief that's upheld here for why Ace wants to be the strongest, or why, or what he thinks makes it suffice for him to be the strongest, which is beating Viper, right? Who is positioned as such thing. But I'm saying within that belief, right, the belief that Ace upholds, why is that something in which is correspondent to reality? You just never answered that question. That's like, what are you talking about? Can you answer
okay.
my question, please?
Clarify what I meant, right? The point is that when I said context, right, I said in terms of the clear meaning of the scan, in terms of the wording, right? The context is specifically for what they mean in terms of the world's strongest. That's the differentiation there. Now, second
Huh?
off, right? Can you please shut up? Thank you.
All I said
The
was,
point,
huh?
because you gotta let me finish, bro. Don't throw me off track. The point is that the strongest in relation here is to when the data book says, right, that he's gonna become the strongest by aiming for the top, right? Basically, what it's doing is it's reaffirming Ace's belief, right, as you said, that if he beats Whitebeard, right, he's aiming for the top in
Mm-hmm.
context to what the data book's obviously referring to Ace trying to fight him. And then in the name of, they're saying it will be in the name of becoming the strongest. So it's not just Ace's belief, right? It's basically confirming the idea that Ace has in the back of his mind to beat Whitebeard to become the strongest. That's a phrasing of the scan.
Wait, that's kind of a non sequitur. If they're just confirming the fact of, if they're just confirming Ace's belief in which they're talking about, well, if Ace wants to be the strongest, he's going to aim for the top in the name of the world's strongest, right? Then obviously from that POV of Ace, he thinks, right, what makes it sufficient to be the strongest is by beating Viper, who is positioned at this thing. That's fine. That's been the whole agreement this entire point. But I'm saying that's a non sequitur from saying that, well, this is something which logically follows, which makes it in a way of being corresponding to reality, as in if Ace does beat him, he is undoubtedly the strongest part into the combat ability, right? The whole thing stems from Ace's belief once again, because they talk about Ace belief, they're reaffirming it. They're making it consistent that Ace thinks that beating Whitebeard makes it where he is top one in terms of combat. That's fine. But once again, I want you to prove why, external to Ace's belief, this is something in which is my fault. This is something which is upholded in the verse. You have yet to prove that. We can move on if you want to.
Okay. The problem is that
I
the
want to
data
circle.
book is yeah, the data book in no way is a wording confirming that specifically Ace's wording. I'm not saying
You
Ace is
just said
trying
it.
to. No, I'm saying that.
You just said that
Can
but
you?
was
Yeah,
reaffirming
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Let me finish. Let me finish. It's not.
You
It's
just said that.
confirming Ace's words in the sense that it's confirming that to be in reality, right? Like if I hold the
Prove that.
belief, right?
That's prove that.
Yeah. Okay. Let me finish. The phrasing obviously does not actually in any way give context to Ace's belief in particular. They didn't say Ace is trying to do this. They just say Ace's dream. They don't say any of this. They just say on clear wording, aim for the top in the name of the world's strongest. They are giving the mission, right, for Ace to aim for the top, Whitebeard, in the name of becoming the world's strongest. So become the world's
Mhm.
strongest, he has to aim for Whitebeard, who's contextualized to be the man at the
By
top.
combative means, right?
Yeah, by combative means, because that's the only context to how Ace is going to do it. So the
Mm-hmm.
problem is the data book isn't actually giving any context that is particularly Ace's belief, even though it still is Ace's belief,
What?
right? They are just saying outright that to become the world's strongest, you have to aim for the top, which is Whitebeard in this context. They're not actually
That's
giving
not
any
what
specific
wait,
context.
okay, wait. If the context surrounds Ace, right? Because obviously, I'm pretty sure even in the manga, Ace was implying he wants to be the strongest by beating Whitebeard. So, if
Yes,
Ace is aiming for Whitebeard to be the strongest, right? This is a goal in which Ace upholds, correct? Because he wants to beat
yes,
Whitebeard to be the strongest, correct? Okay.
yes.
So if a goal in which Ace has in the mind, which is okay, if I beat the fuck out of if I beat Whitebeard's ass, I'm fucking top one now. Holy shit. I'm top one, right? So that once
If
again, it seems to be a belief which is upholded. But once again, you're saying that distinctly from Ace's POV or belief, you're saying that just by them saying aim for the top in the name of the world's strongest, you interpret that to be as in to become top one or be top one in terms of combat, you have the Whitebeard. But that's not within the syntax whatsoever. I think that what gets more credence for me at least is by using the context and by using Ace's character, which is Ace been wanting to beat Whitebeard to be the strongest. So therefore, if it's reaffirming this kind of like reaffirm this contextually,
Yeah, the
then I
10
think that
minutes
would
left.
fit what I'm saying. But we can move on. I don't want to stay on this point for like
okay,
a
that's
long
fine. That's fine.
time.
I don't really think that
Okay,
counters what it's
you guys are going to conclusions.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, we get to
Do you
conclude.
need
I
a
don't feel like
second?
concluding.
Yeah, I
Can you
don't.
just
Yeah,
judge? Can you just give a point, bro? I don't care for concluding.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
fine.
I don't really need conclusions. Once again, Cho won this pretty easily. Like you verbatim just question bag, it went circular. The whole entire point of the scan is just two different interpretations. You're saying that this scan affirms that in name and in reality, Whitebeard is the strongest. Cho's interpretation is just that, well, the statement of him being the strongest and affirming it being the strongest is just relative to what Ace believes. Ace is just affirming the belief that if Ace accomplishes said goal, again, relative to his point of view, then this said actualization will happen. If Ace beats Whitebeard, he believes is the strongest, therefore he'll also be the strongest, right? That's all the data book is, affirming. Cho agrees to that, but what he asks is that okay, well, external from Ace's belief, why does this map onto every other character from the verse? And then to touch the PowerPoint that the narrative of Whitebeard being the strongest combatively is always going to be referenced to his prime.
Oh my gosh,
Like
bro.
so just one pretty easily about this.
Uh, Okay, I don't.
That-
So wait, did you not hear Trouble when I told you, right? When I told him that when it comes to Ace's belief, I agree that, like, if someone said Whitebeard's the strongest pirate, and then the data book just outright said Whitebeard's the strongest pirate, it's affirming that belief, right? But there's nothing in the syntax or the specific context of the scan that tries
But
to denote the words.
you guys can
Right.
contest judgment after. We only have 10 minutes left.
Okay,
All
I
right.
guess Trouble move on to his scaling then.
Shotgun and
Yeah.
scale right quick. Yeah, all right.
sure.
All right, look at all these scans, bro. So what I'm gonna lay out is that it's consistent within One Piece when people talk about Kaido. They more so talk about him being the strongest creature because that's his epithet, that's his title pretty much he upholds. You can see all these statements of him saying it's often called the most powerful creature in the world. Kaido has such a strong body that he is called the strongest creature in the world. The strongest creature, or enemies the world's strongest pirate, just being the strongest within particular fields in which Kaido is known for, etc., etc. And then when we go to the last skin, it says I kept bringing down those people who were said to be stronger than me, and I found myself being called the strongest. So we see Kaido give contextualization towards why he is being called the strongest, and that's because of him beating people in the fight, which is going to be combative ability. So if it's very consistent within One Piece that people know Kaido for being the world's strongest creature, and then Kaido brings contextualization from said people as well, and he was beating them up, that just means Kaido is known to be the strongest creature because he beats everyone, or he's the strongest within combative capabilities. So go ahead.
Okay, so first off, right, why would their beliefs in terms of how they actually, like, whether it be Kaido or the other people, why do their beliefs map out onto reality?
Let's move on. You didn't try it. Let's move on. Can we
What?
conclude? Can we conclude?
Mm, Okay, we can conclude. You didn't
All
answer
right.
that simple
All right.
question.
Um,
All right, Table, go ahead.
Oh, yes. Say your conclusions.
Can I go
he
first?
was not listening to the last
Hold
point.
on, okay, okay,
Okay.
hold on.
Matter of
Hold on,
fact,
wait,
Lucas,
hold
you
on,
can go
hold on,
first.
hold on. I was listening. I just didn't hear Alto's argument. So can you repeat your argument? I remember
I got
Lucas.
you. I'll conclude. So Lucas asked me why does like the people's opinion map onto something that's reality, and that's relevant given the argument for the provider here. So I'm saying that it's very consistent with the One Piece that Kaido is known for being the strongest creature. You can see all these scans. It's often called the most powerful creature. Kaido is called the strongest creature, the strongest pirate. And then at the last panel, I say that Kaido said he kept on beating niggas up who were said to be stronger than him, and he found himself being called the strongest. So I'm saying within this consistency within One Piece that he is known for being the strongest, and then Kaido also bring forth contextualization. That should come to a logical conclusion that he is the strongest because of his combat abilities. And then Lucas says, why does the people's opinion map onto reality? But that's irrelevant. That's irrelevant given the fact that Kaido states he found himself being called the strongest. It's not more so being the people's opinion. It's more so being Kaido being mapped on to be the strongest. And I'm correlating that towards the consistency within how he's used within the usage strongest to be in terms of strongest pirate. I mean, strongest creature. My fault.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah. Cho one.
What?
Do you want?
Yeah.
How?
Okay,
This
you
guy,
guys
no,
can
this
contest
guy's
judgment
actually.
after.
Oh
Do you
my
want?
God, no, but how,
Okay,
I
bro?
don't
okay.
believe in this.
Wait, one second. So initial judgment is show one for the recording. I
Oh
just
my
want
gosh.
to change all this.
This
You
guy's
guys had a
ridiculous.
40-minute time limit, and you guys had
Wait,
8
hold on,
minutes
hold on.
left.
Judgment is that Cho won all 3 points, negative diff.
This guy's actually on
Okay.
my ass, bro. Why did I agree with this guy?
Uh,
All right, but Lucas, you got like, if you want to contest it, you got like 8 minutes left in the debate time.
Bro, the whole
But now
point.
we got to
Okay,
switch to
okay,
Asmund
okay.
versus Trouble.
Let's go. Let's tell him he has trouble, right? When Joe at the end there, he agreed